Let's Talk Prevention Idaho. This podcast is a production led by the statewide nonprofit Community Coalitions of Idaho, or CCI. Here at CCI, it is our job to support the work of prevention across the state of Idaho. Through education, training, and providing valuable resources, we help make the work of prevention happen all across Idaho. This podcast will update listeners on what CCI is doing from week to week, as well as provide information for vital professionals in Idaho across the country. How's it going? And welcome to this very first episode of Let's Talk Prevention Idaho. This podcast is a effort of Community Coalitions of Idaho to help inform the coalitions here in the state of Idaho on what we've been doing and what we have to offer their coalition if they need support work from our organization. Community Coalitions of Idaho is a statewide nonprofit that helps in the coalition building work. So we are here to provide support services to our coalitions, build up new coalitions, and help existing coalitions remain relevant and moving forward. So, my name is David Phillips. I am the new Executive Director for Community Coalitions of Idaho. At the same time, we have a new Program Coordinator, Chloe Aponte, who was hired at exactly the same time that I was, and we are the new staff here at Community Coalitions of Idaho. We work with our contractors, Jim Hoopla, which is our grant evaluator, and then we also have a graphic design team that we work with that we can lend out to our coalition partners. Now, one of the very first things that we needed to do here at CCI was to go back to our roots, to go back to the reason why Community Coalitions of Idaho exists. It exists to support our coalitions. So what we've been doing since about mid-April is Chloe and I have been going around and meeting our coalition partners. Now, we're a statewide organization, so that means we have to cover the entire state of Idaho. Well, in this COVID world that we find ourselves in, that's not quite so easy. So thank God we have a Zoom platform that we can use to meet our partners, and it's another benefit of becoming a member of CCI is you can use our Zoom, paid for Zoom platform to run your meetings, workshops, and trainings. We have, the platform has been used by DATE, drug and alcohol training and education partners up in northern Idaho, in conjunction with one of our member coalitions. We have a lot of our members use it to run their meetings, especially in this COVID environment. It is how we run our board meetings and our membership meetings. So it is a very vital part to the required and needed existence for CCI. Here you find yourselves in my home office because to keep costs low, and also in this wonderful world of COVID-19 is we all work from home. So even though this is a new normal for a lot of you guys out there, here at CCI we are home based. What I wanted to do is so on top of having new staff members, we just recently had elections for some of our key positions in the on the board here with CCI, and we have a new chair and a new vice chair. Our new chair of the board is Charlene Johnson, and our new vice chair is Sharon Infringer. And I really hope I'm saying your last name right, Sharon. But so these two ladies have come on and helped direct Chloe and I on the direction that CCI is going in. And one of the things that our new chair and vice chair said they want better communication from us, the staff, to you, the members. And so we've done a few emails, and we really weren't getting a great response. And I know we all get a ton of emails, and there's things that are super relevant to me that I'll say, ooh, that's cool. I don't have time to look at that right now, but I'm gonna go back to that. And then I just get more and more and more emails, and it gets buried, and then I'm hitting one of those times where I have a moment to go through my email, and I look and I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have seen that, because that was super relevant then, not so relevant now. So I was like, oh, how are we going to break through the monotony of what we all are going through and get people's attention? And a la CADCA midyear. CADCA is a community advocacy drug organization, nationwide organization that deals with the drug-free communities here in the United States, and they have a big conference every year. Well, normally it's held somewhere and everyone goes to it. Well, not in this COVID environment. So they had a virtual midyear for the very first time, and I stumbled across a really good, really neat, really interesting workshop called Podcasting for Prevention. And I'm like, I used to be a radio talk show host. Maybe I can do this. So I jumped into the training, and it was led by Ronnie Katz and Shavar Francis, two totally cool people, really neat, great, informative, really kept our attention. It wasn't a time where you were like off figuring, like doodling with something else. Really kept me in the training. And they work for the New York City Prevention Resource Center. The New York City Resource Prevention Center is just like CCI, but for the city of New York. So I was like, this is kind of cool. They do what we do. They're doing a podcast, and it's doing really well. Why can't we do one? So I was like, light bulb, this is what I'm going to do to engage with and to inform our membership. I'm going to do a podcast. So here we are, kicking off episode 1 of what I hope is a very, very, very long effort in engaging with you and informing you on neat and interesting topics, meeting cool people that are out there doing the work that we're all doing, learning from these people, and being updated on what CCI is doing and how we can benefit you. So I'm trying to figure out, what does the first episode look like? What am I going to talk about? I literally, CADCA ended yesterday, so it's not like I've had a few weeks. And if you listened to Ronnie and Shavar's podcast, they're all about prep. And it was just, this is literally, I think this was like Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Monday. It was Monday's podcast, Monday afternoon. And ever since then, it's all I've been thinking about is this podcast. Now remember, I used to be a talk show host, and I did a lot of work in media. So this is kind of like riding a bike for me. Just jump on, let's go. So that's what I'm doing. I'm jumping on and I'm going. And I'm like, what are we going to talk about? Guess what? We have a really big win here in Idaho when it comes to the medical marijuana ballot measure that we were all fighting here in prevention in Idaho. So I want to take you back. COVID-19 just started. And one of the things that came out of Governor Brad Little's stay-at-home order was that Russ Belville and his group that was pushing the medical marijuana ballot initiative, they were told you can't go face-to-face anymore. Basically, the stay-at-home order cut off the the signature gathering effort right at its knees. Bam, done. So I don't know about you, but I saw that and I was like, thank God something positive came out of this because I'm going crazy. So we get that little bit of what we thought was a win. Well, fast forward about a month and a half, 2 months, and another effort that was gathering signatures to be put on the November 2020 ballot was the a group called Reclaim Idaho, and they had some ballot proposition that they wanted to use to increase funding for Idaho schools. Well, they decided to sue, saying our rights to a proper process were violated, so they sued. The judge agreed with them and gave Idaho 2 options to follow within a week or so. Said you can either A, give them another 45 days to do electronic signatures, or B, just put them on the ballot. Just say done. Well, Governor Brad Little didn't like either of those. At the time, it didn't. Some of us didn't realize what his thought process was. Sometimes we have to give our leaders a little bit of room, or maybe, I don't even know. I tried to have a conversation with people in his office and I didn't get this answer, but it just looked like he was ignoring. I'm like, nope, not doing either. So then Russ Belville and the medical marijuana people are like, hey, wait a minute. If they get that, we want it too. They were not a part of the lawsuit. They did not attach themselves to the lawsuit, but they wanted to get the same precedence. So what they did is they reached out to the Secretary of State and said, we want the same thing. We either want to be given the opportunity to do 45 days of electronic signature gathering, or we want to just be put on the ballot because we were not given the right, the same time as we would have normally had to get this proposition on the ballot. Now, they had a really bad, really poorly written proposition. This would be a really bad ballot measure, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of others that are doing this work and fighting against marijuana legalization. And then two, it's just, I don't know, I really think they could have picked better people to lead the effort. But that being said, really scared, because who was going to validate these 45 days of electronic signatures? How do you validate electronic signatures? It was like, we were like, ugh. And we were stuck in this world of preparing for a possible inevitable this year still, because remember, when Governor Brad Little had a stay-at-home effort, we all went, yay, because we felt like one thing had been taken off our plates. We didn't have to worry about fighting medical marijuana for this year. We're still fighting marijuana use with our youth and in our communities, but we didn't have to fight this legal legislative battle anymore. The legislative session was over. The proposition was killed, so we were good there. So just like, yay. So here we are. Secretary of State's getting an ultimatum. The Secretary of State told Russ Belville and his group, what you're asking me to do is illegal in Idaho. There are no laws. There is no opportunities where this is allowed. I cannot allow you to collect electronic signatures, and I cannot just put you on the ballot without having the valid signature process, because this is outside of Idaho election law. So what you will have to do is you will have to do your own lawsuit and get the same order from the judge, and then see what happens there. Because what would have to happen, the Secretary of State told Russ Belville and the medical marijuana group, was what would have to happen for either of these two scenarios to happen is the governor would have to call a special session of the legislature. The legislature would have to come back. They would have to create the law, vote on the law, and the governor would have to sign it. So not only was that highly unlikely, but it was also not probable within the time frame for that to happen. So so here we're waiting. The governor had asked, I believe, the U.S. Supreme Court to weigh in on the matter because of the legality of the illegal nature of the primary judge's order for Reclaim Idaho to allow for electronic signatures or just to put the initiative on the ballot for the voters in November. And the U.S. Supreme Court upheld Idaho's election sovereignty. So basically, the U.S. Supreme Court has said that they agree that there are no laws that exist to provide either of these options that the original judge had issued an order on. So it basically has put this issue to bed for 2020. Now, there are going to be more opportunities. Idaho being the marijuana-free, the marijuana island of the country and of the West Coast, we can't be naive to think that this isn't going to be a battle that we're going to be fighting for a while now. The hope is that the failures of marijuana legalization across the country will start to have a light shined on them, and possibly maybe that the marijuana legalization lobby will have to spend more time keeping the laws that were legalized from falling apart versus attacking Idaho. But from what it sounds like is we can get through the rest of 2020 trying to remain healthy, keep our families safe, not falling into economic disaster, and we can continue to look for ways to provide the prevention work that we do for our communities. So that is a collective sigh. I was very happy to receive the email. I was very happy to know it. And what's kind of weird is some of the lawsuits and some of the back and forth that had been happening had been covered by the media, but I haven't really seen anything yet. This is kind of fresh, so I haven't seen anything yet in the media. So I thought this was a perfect opportunity to talk about this right here, right now, on the very first podcast that we are doing. So now let's transition into some of the things that CCI has been doing out in the community. We, like I said, our platform was used to hold a series of workshops on drug trends in the community, preferably in rural Idaho. And what was really cool is I went to a lot of these trainings, even though it wasn't sponsored by CCI, it was sponsored by Upriver Youth and Date, but they used the Zoom platform for the trainings to be able to happen. And what was really cool was I learned a lot about how our rural communities are affected by substance abuse and how much differently it looks for them to provide prevention efforts. So coming from, I used to live in Southern California and now living in the more populated part of Idaho, I forget that I have lived in rural areas. Probably the most rural areas I've lived in Southern California would be the high desert, where we lived on a dirt road. It led a mile up to the paved road, and we were quite a ways from. We were probably about 30-40 minutes away from the store and schools. And then I lived in Susanville, up in Northern California for a year, and that was pretty rural too, because that was quite a ways to get into town. So it put a whole new meaning to going to town. You're really going to town because you lived outside. But the training really highlighted the hurdles and obstacles that our rural communities face. And Idaho's very rural. Now, if you're watching this in Idaho, you are in one of those more rural areas, you understand how many rural areas there are. If you're watching this in Idaho from a more populated area, you may not know. Or if you're watching this from outside of Idaho, and if you're in a rural area, you get it. So that was one of the things. We also worked with another member who was having a hard time with their social media. So I got a chance to look at their Facebook page and say, it's been 2 years since you posted. Maybe you should get something up there, because that tells me if I was just a random citizen looking for prevention in my area and I stumbled across your page, that would tell me you're no longer in existence. That means that you shut down because you haven't posted in 2 years. And that was a big deal for them, because they did not want to send the message that they have been closed down. So they jumped on it and they started posting. And then what I did is I held a small training for their organization to really give them, to empower them and to give them the tools they need to really find success in getting their message out via social media. And then the Youth Action Project, another one of our members, they actually worked with us and I ran 2 workshops for their organization. I believe it was funded under the Wood Johnson Collaborative Fund that they have, and we were able to not only help people in Idaho, but we were able to put the opportunity up on the CADCA forum, and we were able to help coalitions from New York all the way to Hawaii. So we turned what was a regional opportunity into a nationwide opportunity to teach more coalitions on how they can utilize their social media to get the message out. And one of the things that I'm always going to be a guy who thinks bigger, is because what happens to me is eventually going to happen not just to my neighbor, but to the people just, that live south of me, that live east, west, north of me. And what happens to them is eventually going to happen to me. So if we are all sharing thoughts and ideas together, we're more likely to find success. And what's funny is when I very first moved to Idaho, I was looking for one of the very first things that I did. And I don't even think we had unloaded the truck yet. I was trying to figure out where was my local coalition, drug and alcohol coalition. Where where can I plug in? What do I need to do? And it was going on Facebook, finding CCI's Facebook page. I messaged them and said, hey, I'd love to know. I live in Meridian. What's my coalition? They were able to point me in the direction of the Meridian Anti-Drug Coalition. So I actually sit as the media sector rep for the Meridian Anti-Drug Coalition. And then just this year, I took on the responsibility as the executive director of CCI. So in keeping with that motion, we got a chance to help BYDC, a coalition out in East Idaho. They had a prescription drug take-back event, and we were able to, my program coordinator is located in East Idaho, so she was able to come out, provide on-site support from CCI of BYDC's event. And then we were able to share via social media some of the images and videos from that event. Well, what happened was someone from Western Idaho saw that, thought it was cool, and she actually said, I have prescription drugs that I don't know what to do with. Is there somewhere in my city where I can take them? So I found out what city she lived in, contacted the police department, because that's always the first place that I go, because we didn't have a coalition in that area that I knew of. So I went to the police department and I said, Mr. Police Department, do you guys have prescription drug take-back facilities at your location? They said, yes, we do. It's at our front desk. Have them come by during normal business hours. So sent the message to the person, connected the two prescription drugs that were extra, not needed, not used. Instead of sitting in this lady's medicine cabinet for someone to either steal or for a youth to accidentally take, is now safely disposed of with the police department. So it's an opportunity where we were helping one partner, but we were able to help a member of the community and another partner, because our law enforcement is a big partner in what we do, come together and solve another problem that we were not aware of. So that's the goal of CCI, is to take our resources to be the person, the entity that is helping the other coalitions. We're not going to come into your area and provide services. What we're going to do is we're going to support your efforts in providing services to your community. And another one of those ways that we're doing that is by providing trainings. So we're going to be partnering up with any virtual trainings that are coming up. I know ICAD has a virtual training coming up this fall. And then we're also going to be looking for speakers that can come and provide virtual trainings for our members and for the coalitions here in the state of Idaho. And through these trainings, we hope to give our member coalitions the tools they need to do the work of prevention, especially in these very unforgiving, turbulent times we find ourselves. We left the 2019-2020 school year really not liking how we left things. We were all looking forward to a new school year, a new opportunity to start fresh, to pick up where we left off, and we find ourselves having to still deal with a COVID situation. Looks like we won't have a whole lot of in-person learning. If we do, it'll be affected by people testing positive for having the virus. So any opportunity we can provide to bring relevant training to how you do the work and how you're successful in finding success. And one of the biggest things that I think has come out of this whole COVID situation is the breakdown of the laws that we have put in place to protect our communities and our children from substance abuse. You know, being able to take alcohol to go, being able to drink alcohol outside of buildings because we can't be in the building because of germ exposure. So this virus has created so many opportunities where the breakdown of the laws that we've worked so hard to create to limit the exposure to harmful substances. And then two, a lot of people are still quarantining themselves off, and so we've got a lot of substance abuse that's going unnoticed, and a lot of our kids are either being exposed to substances and we don't know it, we can't support and help them, or they're using and we don't know it and can't help them. We're really trying to figure out how to use things like telehealth to reach out into our communities and let people know that there are still resources available to them. So our goal with CCI is really going to be to look at how we can provide you, the coalitions, as much support as possible to get through these super trying times. So that's going to wrap up today's episode 1. What I would love to put out there is if you have an interest and you would like to be on this podcast, go ahead and send us an email. And the email address is Community Coalitions of Idaho. That's Community Coalitions of Idaho @gmail.com. And we will connect with you and talk to you about setting up an opportunity to be on the show. And if you would like to be a member of Community Coalitions of Idaho, if you are an Idaho coalition, an Idaho organization that works in the substance abuse arena. We would love to talk to you about how we can help support you in your work in prevention. All right, guys, I really appreciate your time. Now let's go out there and get that work done in prevention. See you later.